My sister called me a failure at our family dinner. Little did she know, I'm hiding a $1 million secret. The clink of wine glasses and Mom's forced laughter filled our Seattle dining room, but I felt like I was drowning in the noise. Sunday dinner at Mom's was supposed to be cozy, a ritual of mashed potatoes and small talk, but tonight, every word felt like a blade. Lauren, my older sister, sat across from me, her manicured nails tapping her glass, her husband James nodding at her every quip. I pushed my peas around my plate, trying to blend into the wallpaper, but Lauren's eyes locked onto me like a hawk spotting prey. "Oh, Emma, still freelancing?" she said, her voice dripping with syrupy pity. "I guess some people are just born to float through life." The words landed like a slap, sharp and deliberate. James chuckled, and Mom's smile froze, her fork hovering midair. I waited for her to say something, anything, to shut Lauren down, but she just sipped her wine, eyes darting to the centerpiece. The silence was louder than Lauren's jab, and it carved a hollow in my chest. I forced a smile, my teeth gritted so hard I thought they'd crack. "I manage," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Lauren leaned back, smirking, as if she'd won some invisible game. "Well, not everyone can handle corporate life like me," she added, tossing her hair. "Finance isn't for the faint-hearted." Her words echoed her old taunts, the ones that had followed me since childhood, branding me as the lesser sister. The one who'd never measure up. I stared at my plate, the peas blurring as my pulse thundered in my ears. Betrayal wasn't new. Lauren had always been the golden child, the one Mom bragged about at book club, while I was the afterthought, the quiet one. But tonight, her words felt different, heavier, like they were trying to erase me entirely. I wanted to scream, to hurl my glass across the table and watch it shatter, but I didn't. I never did. Instead, I swallowed the hurt, letting it settle in my gut like a stone. Mom changed the subject, babbling about her garden, but the damage was done. Lauren's smirk lingered, a silent dare for me to fight back. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Not here, not now. My fingers tightened around my napkin, crumpling it into a ball. I'd spent years dodging her barbs, pretending they didn't sting. But tonight, something snapped. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. Furious at Lauren for her cruelty, at Mom for her silence, at myself for letting them make me feel small. I excused myself to the kitchen, muttering about needing water, my steps heavy on the hardwood. Alone, I gripped the counter, my knuckles white, as the faucet dripped in time with my racing thoughts. Lauren's words looped in my mind, born to float through life. She thought she knew me, thought I was nothing. She was wrong. I wasn't floating, I was building, quietly, fiercely, in a world she couldn't even fathom. Lauren's words hung in the air, but it wasn't the first time they'd cut me. I excused myself to the kitchen, where the past came rushing back. The kitchen's fluorescent light buzzed above me, casting harsh shadows on the linoleum. I leaned against the counter, the cold granite grounding me as Lauren's voice echoed in my head, born to float through life. It wasn't just tonight's jab, it was a refrain from a lifetime of being the lesser sister. My mind spiraled back to our childhood in Portland, to the moments that carved my heart into jagged pieces, each one a reminder of my place in the family's hierarchy. I was 10, sitting at the dining table with my science fair project, a clunky model of a solar-powered car I'd spent weeks building. Lauren, 13 and already Mom's pride, glanced at it and scoffed. "Emma, don't bother with the science fair," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "You're not cut out for that stuff." I froze, my hands trembling over the wires. Mom, stirring soup at the stove, didn't look up. "Lauren's right, sweetie," she said absently. "Maybe try something easier, like art." My project never made it to the fair. I dismantled it that night, tears soaking my pillow, convinced I was as useless as they thought. That wasn't the only time. Lauren's barbs were constant, each one chipping away at me. "You're too quiet, Emma," she'd say at family gatherings, rolling her eyes as relatives fawned over her debate trophies. "Nobody notices you." I'd shrink into myself, believing her, while Mom nodded along, her attention fixed on Lauren's glow. The unfairness burned, but I never fought back. I loved them too much, needed their approval too desperately. So I stayed quiet, letting their words define me, burying my dreams under their expectations. By high school, I'd stopped trying to shine. Lauren was the star, valedictorian, headed to Stanford, while I was the B student who didn't apply herself, as Mom put it. I wanted to study computer science, to build something that mattered, but Lauren's voice haunted me, "You're not cut out for that stuff." So I drifted, taking odd jobs after graduation, while Lauren's career soared. Each of her successes, splashed across Mom's Facebook, felt like a reminder of my failure. Yet the hurt wasn't anger, it was a quiet ache, a longing to be seen, to matter. Standing in the kitchen now, I felt that ache swell, threatening to choke me. Lauren's latest jab wasn't new, it was just louder, bolder, because she thought I'd never push back. She didn't know the girl who'd dismantled her dreams had grown into a woman who'd learned to fight in silence. I wasn't the failure she painted me as, but the weight of her words still pressed against my ribs, making it hard to breathe. I turned off the faucet, the drip silenced, and stared at my reflection in the darkened window. My eyes were tired, but there was a spark there, a defiance I hadn't noticed before. Lauren thought she knew me, thought I was destined to fade. She was wrong. I'd been building something she couldn't see, something that would shatter her assumptions. Those old wounds still stung, but I'd built something Lauren couldn't imagine. My secret was my shield. The kitchen's silence wrapped around me. A fragile shield against Lauren's venom. Her words, born to float through life, still stung, but they couldn't touch the truth I'd hidden for years. While she and Mom saw me as a drifter, I'd built an empire in the shadows. My startup, PayVibe, was the backbone of millions of transactions daily, a fintech revolution I'd coded from my tiny Portland apartment. Nobody in my family knew, and I wanted it that way. 5 years ago, I'd been a barista by day, teaching myself Python by night. Lauren's old taunt, "You're not cut out for that stuff," had nearly broken me, but it also lit a fire. I poured my rage into lines of code, building an app that streamlined payments for small businesses. When PayVibe launched, it was a quiet ripple, but within a year, it was a tidal wave. Venture capitalists called, Forbes ran a feature, but I stayed anonymous, using a pseudonym for interviews. Why? Because I didn't need their applause. Not Mom's, not Lauren's. I remembered the day Lauren mocked my freelancing at a family barbecue. "There are many things you don't know about me," I'd said, my voice steady despite the hurt. She'd laughed, dismissing it, but I was already signing contracts with banks, my app powering their systems. I worked 18-hour days, led a team of 50, and brokered deals with tech giants, all while Lauren thought I was floating. My silence wasn't weakness, it was power. I didn't need to prove myself to people who'd never looked for me. My office, tucked in a sleek Seattle high-rise, was my sanctuary. Late nights, I'd stare at the city lights, my laptop glowing with metrics, millions in revenue, thousands of users. Each number was a brick in the wall I'd built against their doubt. But success was lonely. I'd scroll through Lauren's LinkedIn, her polished posts about crushing it in finance, and feel a pang. Not jealousy, grief. Grief for the sister who'd never known me, for the family who'd written me off. I could have told them. Could have walked into Mom's house with a printout of PayVibe's valuation and watched their jaws drop. But what would it change? Lauren would twist it, say I'd gotten lucky, or worse, claim credit. Mom would nod, then pivot to Lauren's latest promotion. So I stayed quiet, letting them believe their version of me. My victories were mine alone, hard-won and untarnished by their judgment. Yet, standing in Mom's kitchen, Lauren's latest barb cracked something open. The hurt wasn't just hers, it was the weight of years. Of being overlooked in my own family. I wasn't floating, I was soaring, and they were too blind to see. My phone buzzed, a notification from my CTO about a new client. I smiled faintly. PayVibe was my truth, my rebellion. Lauren could keep her jabs. I had something she'd never touch. Those old wounds still stung, but I'd built something Lauren couldn't imagine. My secret was my strength, forged in silence. The kitchen's quiet hum faded as I returned to the dining room, Lauren's smirk still burning in my mind. Born to float through life. Her words clung to me, but a new email on my phone shifted everything. It was from my assistant, Lauren Carter. My sister had requested a meeting with PayVibe's CEO, me, for potential funding. She didn't know I was the one she was begging for help. The bitter irony hit like a freight train. Lauren's firm, a mid-tier financial consultancy, was struggling. A leaked memo I'd seen online hinted at layoffs, and now she was scrambling for partnerships. She'd once sneered, "The tech industry is a young person's game," dismissing my world as beyond my grasp. Yet here she was, unknowingly reaching out to the sister she'd called a drifter, desperate for my company's lifeline. My heart twisted, part shock, part pain. How could she not know? How could she still see me as nothing? I sat back down, my face a mask of calm, while Lauren prattled on about her high-stakes deals. James nodded, Mom beamed, and I felt like a ghost at my own family's table. The email burned in my pocket. Lauren's request wasn't just a business move, it was a new edit, cruel twist of fate. For years, she'd painted me as irrelevant, and now her survival hinged on me. I could have laughed, but the hurt was too raw, the betrayal too deep. I remembered her voice at Thanksgiving last year, sharp and cutting. "Emma, don't take this the wrong way, but aren't you worried about being overwhelmed?" She'd said it about my freelancing, oblivious to the empire I'd built. Now, her firm's proposal was polished but desperate, citing PayVibe's innovation as their salvation. She didn't know the genius CEO she praised in her pitch was the sister she'd mocked. The thought made my chest ache, not with triumph, but with the weight of her blindness. I didn't respond to the email. Not yet. Instead, I agreed to meet her as PayVibe's representative. Keeping my identity hidden. I wanted to see her face, to hear her pitch, to know if she'd still sneer if she knew the truth. My assistant scheduled the meeting for next week at our Seattle office. I'd be there, not as Emma the failure, but as someone she'd have to respect. The thought sent a shiver through me, anticipation laced with dread. As Mom cleared the plates, Lauren shot me a glance, her eyes glinting with that familiar superiority. "You should get a real job, Emma," she said lightly. "Freelancing won't last forever." I met her gaze, my voice steady. "There are many things you don't know about me." Her smile faltered, just for a second, and I felt a spark of power. She had no idea the tables were turning, that her world was about to collide with mine. I could have exposed her ignorance right then, but I chose to watch instead. The glass walls of PayVibe's Seattle office gleamed under morning light, but my heart pounded as I adjusted my blazer. Lauren was coming to pitch for funding, still clueless that I, her drifting sister, was the CEO she'd face. I'd told my team to introduce me as a senior strategist, not the founder. I wanted to see her unfiltered, to watch the sister who'd dismissed me as irrelevant beg for my help without knowing it. She arrived on time, her charcoal suit pristine, her smile practiced. "Miss Carter, right this way," my assistant said, leading her to the conference room. I lingered by the door, my tablet a prop. Observing. Lauren's confidence was unshaken, her voice crisp as she chatted with my team. "I've heard PayVibe's CEO is a visionary," she said, oblivious to me standing there. "The tech industry is a young person's game, but they've cracked it." Her words, a recycled barb from years ago, twisted like a knife. I stepped inside, nodding politely. "Emma Wilson, Strategic Operations," I said, my tone neutral. Her eyes flickered with recognition, then confusion. "Emma, you work here?" she asked, her smile tightening. I nodded, gesturing for her to begin. She recovered quickly, launching into her pitch, polished, desperate, citing PayVibe's innovation as her firm's lifeline. I listened, my face impassive, while my mind churned. Would she act this way if she knew? Was her respect real, or just a mask for survival? Her voice from last Thanksgiving haunted me. "Don't take this the wrong way, but aren't you worried about being overwhelmed?" Yet here she was, praising my company, unaware she was pleading to the sister she'd dismissed. I could have revealed myself, watched her crumble, but I didn't. Silence was my weapon. "Perhaps you didn't know me as well as you thought," I'd said once, and now I lived it, letting her dig her own hole. New edit, my emotions clashed. Pride in my power battled grief for the sister who'd never seen me. The wall she'd built between us was still there, solid and cold. I asked pointed questions, probing her plan's weaknesses. Her answers were sharp but nervous, her eyes darting to me, sensing something off. "You seem familiar with our work," she said, half joking. I smiled thinly. "I pay attention." The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken truths. I wondered if I stripped away her assumptions, would she respect me or resent me more? The question gnawed, but I stayed quiet, letting her words fill the void. When she finished, I stood. "We'll review your proposal and follow up," I said, my voice cool. She hesitated, then extended her hand. "Thank you, Emma. I didn't know you were involved here." Her tone held a question, but I didn't answer. I shook her hand and left, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Alone in my office, I stared at the skyline, my chest tight. I'd won this round, but the victory felt hollow. Lauren's ignorance was her punishment, but it was also mine. My silence didn't last long. The truth has a way of breaking free. The conference hall buzzed with anticipation, thousands of eyes fixed on the stage where I stood, my emerald suit sharp against the blue backdrop. TechVision, PayVibe's flagship event, was my moment to shine, and I'd orchestrated every detail to perfection. But my heart raced for another reason. Lauren was in the front row, VIP pass around her neck, unaware that her drifting sister was about to take the stage as CEO. The announcer's voice boomed, "Please welcome Emma Wilson, founder and CEO of PayVibe." I stepped into the spotlight, my smile steady, and locked eyes with Lauren. Her face froze, professional curiosity morphing into shock. Her mouth parted, a silent gasp, as she whispered, "I had no idea you were." I held her gaze, my voice cutting through the hall. "Welcome to TechVision, where innovation rewrites the rules." Her eyes, wide and trembling, followed me as I spoke, outlining PayVibe's vision. I was no longer the sister she'd dismissed as irrelevant. The memory of her Thanksgiving jab, "Aren't you worried about being overwhelmed?" fueled me. I didn't flinch, didn't falter, but inside, I was a storm, triumph warring with pain. How could she not know? How could she see me as nothing for so long? I paused, addressing the crowd but speaking to her. "What didn't you understand, Lauren?" I said, my tone calm but razor sharp, echoing our past. "That your sister might actually be capable of something significant?" The crowd thought it was rhetorical, but Lauren flinched, her hands twisting in her lap. Her colleagues whispered, confused, as her shock rippled outward. I continued, introducing the keynote speaker, my voice unwavering, but her stunned face burned into me. Backstage, my assistant handed me a tablet, oblivious to the drama. "Flawless, Ms. Wilson," she said. I nodded, but my throat tightened. Lauren's expression wasn't just shock, it was betrayal, as if I'd tricked her by succeeding. I'd wanted her to see me, but now that she did, the victory felt bittersweet. Her words, "The tech industry is a young person's game," had pushed me to prove her wrong, but the cost was this chasm between us. As the keynote began, I glanced at the crowd. Lauren sat rigid, staring at the stage but not seeing it. Her world had shifted, and I'd forced it. I could have softened the blow, told her privately, but she'd earned this reckoning. Yet the pain in her eyes mirrored mine, a shared wound from years of misunderstanding. My phone buzzed, her text, "Why didn't you tell me?" I slipped it back into my pocket, unready to answer. Let her sit with the truth, as I'd sat with her cruelty. That moment changed something in Lauren, though I didn't see it right away. The conference hall faded into memory, but Lauren's shocked face lingered as I sat in my Seattle office a week later, staring at a new email from her. No subject line, just a concise note, "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm committed to making this partnership work." No mention of TechVision, no groveling, just professionalism. I leaned back, skeptical but intrigued. Was this the same sister who'd sneered, "New edit, nobody notices you"? Lauren had joined PayVibe's pilot project. Her firm now tethered to my company's funding. I'd expected her to pull back after learning I was CEO, to let pride or resentment win. Instead, she showed up. Reports from my team noted her diligence, early meetings, detailed proposals, no trace of the arrogance she'd worn like armor. I watched from afar, my office a fortress of glass and steel, wondering if this was genuine or a performance. One evening, I found a sticky note on my desk, her precise handwriting unmistakable, "I was wrong about you." No signature, no explanation, just those 4 words. I turned it over in my hands, the paper fragile against my calloused fingers. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A crack in the distance that had kept us apart. I tucked it into my drawer, unsure what to feel. Pride? Hope? Or the same guarded caution that had kept me silent for years? I noticed her change in small things. She asked questions in meetings, listened instead of lectured. Once, she stayed late, her laptop glowing in the empty conference room. I passed by, unseen, and heard her on a call, her voice steady but humble. "We'll make it work." PayVibe's framework is solid. No trace of the Lauren who'd said, "The tech industry is a young person's game." I wanted to believe she was growing, but the hurt, new edit, "Nobody notices you," still pulsed beneath my skin. My team respected her effort, and that mattered. "She's sharp," my CTO said, unaware of our history. I nodded, my face neutral. "Good. Keep me updated." But inside, I was torn. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand why she'd dismissed me for so long. Another part saw her note, her work, and wondered if she was finally seeing me. Not as the failure she'd painted, but as the sister who'd built something extraordinary. I didn't reach out. Not yet. Trust was a currency I'd spent too freely before. And Lauren's change, though real, was fragile. But the note stayed in my drawer, a quiet promise of something new. I caught myself hoping, not for her approval, but for a sister who'd meet me as an equal. My heart stirred with possibility, fragile and new. The thought felt dangerous, like standing on a ledge, but it was there, stubborn and unyielding. Lauren's change was quiet, but it was real. Then came the moment she proved it. Mom's dining room glowed with candlelight, but the warmth couldn't mask the tension. Another Sunday dinner, weeks after TechVision, and I braced for the usual script: Lauren's triumphs, my silence. Mom, as always, led the charge. "Emma, you really should settle down," she said, slicing her roast. "Freelancing can't be sustainable." Her words, though softer than Lauren's, stung like a familiar bruise. I opened my mouth, but Lauren's voice cut through first. "Emma's not invisible," she said, her tone firm, new edit, gaze fixed on Mom. "She's built more than any of us ever knew." The room froze. James's fork clattered, and Mom's smile faltered. I stared at Lauren, my pulse hammering. This wasn't her usual performance, she wasn't seeking applause. Her words carried weight, a public reversal of years of dismissal. "Some people are just born to float through life," she'd said that once, but now she was undoing it. Mom blinked, confused. "What do you mean, built?" Lauren didn't hesitate. "Emma's the CEO of PayVibe, Mom. The app you use for your book club dues? That's her. She runs a tech empire." Her voice held no trace of the mockery I'd endured. "The tech industry is a young person's game." Instead, it was steady, almost protective. James nodded, impressed, but I barely noticed. New edit, my breath caught, a knot of hurt and relief unraveling. I'd waited years for someone to see me, to say it out loud. Lauren's defense wasn't just words, it was a shield. Deflecting Mom's casual jab. I remembered her note: "I was wrong about you," and saw it now in her eyes, fierce and unyielding. She wasn't just admitting her mistake, she was rewriting our story, right here, in front of the family that had always overlooked me. Mom stammered, "Well, I didn't know." Her voice trailed off, and for once, she looked at me, really looked. I could have spoken, could have explained PayVibe's millions in revenue, but I didn't. Lauren's stand was enough. I met her gaze, my throat tight, and nodded slightly. She returned it, a silent pact. The girl who'd sneered, "You're not cut out for that stuff," was gone, replaced by someone who'd finally seen me. The conversation shifted awkwardly: Mom's garden, James's job, but the air had changed. Lauren's words hung like a banner, unshakable. I felt lighter, as if the weight of years, her barbs, Mom's neglect, had lifted. Not entirely, but enough to breathe. I didn't need their approval anymore, but Lauren's defense was a gift, unexpected and raw. It wasn't about forgiveness, it was about being seen, not as the lesser sister, but as Emma, whole and powerful. No apologies were spoken, but none were needed. We saw each other clearly now. The coffee shop hummed with morning chatter, the scent of espresso grounding me as I sat across from Lauren. Weeks after her stand at Mom's dinner, we'd agreed to meet, no agenda. Just us. Her suit was less severe today, her smile tentative but real. I sipped my latte, wary but open, the memory of her defense, "Emma's not invisible," still warm in my chest. We talked about work first, safe ground. She described her firm's pivot, how PayVibe's funding had saved jobs. I shared a new feature we were launching, surprised at how easily the words flowed. Then, quietly, she said, "I'm proud of you, Emma." Her eyes met mine, no trace of the old condescension new edit that once dismissed me as overwhelmed. I paused, my cup warm against my palms, and replied, "I'm your sister. I still pay attention." The words, a nod to our past, carried no venom, only truth. I'd always watched her, even when she didn't see me, just as I'd built Pay Vibe while she mocked my freelancing. Her lips quirked, a flicker of guilt crossing her face, but she didn't apologize. I didn't want her to. Words like sorry were too small for the years of hurt. New edit, aren't you worried about being overwhelmed? What mattered was this. Her looking at me, really looking, and me looking back. We didn't rehash TechVision or her shock when I took the stage. We didn't need to. That moment, "What didn't you understand, Lauren?" had burned away the old script. Now, her questions were genuine, her laughter unforced. She asked about my team, my vision, and for the first time, I felt like her equal, not her shadow. The ache of betrayal lingered, but it was softer, overshadowed by a new edit, deep gratitude. A barista called an order, breaking the moment. Lauren glanced at her watch, then back at me. "I've got a meeting, but can we do this again?" Her voice was hopeful, almost shy. I nodded, my guard still up but cracking. "Yeah, let's." As she stood, she touched my shoulder, a brief, deliberate gesture. It wasn't much, but it was enough, a bridge between the sister who'd dismissed me and the one sitting here now, trying. I stayed after she left, staring at the foam swirling in my cup. The weight of years, her jabs, my silence, hadn't vanished, but it was lighter. We didn't need grand gestures or tearful confessions. We just needed this, a moment where we saw each other, not as rivals or failures, but as sisters, flawed but growing. I felt calm, not the fiery triumph of TechVision, but a steady peace, like the first deep breath after a storm. That afternoon felt like a new beginning, simple but profound. The Seattle waterfront sparkled under a rare spring sun, the breeze carrying salt and promise as Lauren and I walked along the pier. Weeks after our coffee shop talk, we'd started these walks, no longer bound by obligation but by something new, understanding. She pointed at a ferry gliding across Puget Sound, her laugh light, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. The sister who'd sneered, "You're not cut out for that stuff," was still there, but she was changing, and so was I. We talked about small things, her latest project, my plans for PayVibe's expansion. No grand confessions, just the rhythm of two people learning each other again. I remembered her defense at Mom's, "Emma's not invisible," and how it had shifted something in me. The hurt of her old words, "You're not cut out for that stuff," hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined us. I'd proven her wrong, not just at TechVision, but every day since, and she'd seen it. A seagull swooped low, and Lauren nudged me, grinning. "You'd code an app to track that bird, wouldn't you?" I laughed, the sound surprising me. "Maybe. I still pay attention," I said, echoing our coffee shop talk. She nodded, her smile softening, and we kept walking, the city's hum a backdrop to our quiet ease. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting to be seen. I just was. I thought of TechVision, of standing on that stage, my voice cutting through her shock. "What didn't you understand, Lauren?" That moment had been a reckoning, but this was something better, a beginning. We weren't perfect. Trust was still fragile, built on her actions, not promises. But her note, "I was wrong about you," and her stand at Mom's had laid a foundation. We were building on it, step by step, like this walk. The pier ended at a railing, and we leaned against it, watching the water ripple. "I'm pitching to Sophia Reyes next week," Lauren said, her voice steady. "Any tips?" I raised an eyebrow, teasing. "Don't underestimate her." She laughed, catching the hint, and I felt a spark of pride, not just for me, but for her. She was trying, and I was letting her. The betrayal, the years of being the lesser sister, hadn't vanished, but they were part of a larger story now, one we were rewriting together. As we turned back, the sun dipped low, painting the sky gold. I felt calm, grounded, not the fiery defiance of proving myself, but the quiet strength of knowing who I was. Lauren wasn't my judge anymore, she was my sister, flawed but present. I didn't need her approval, but I welcomed her effort. And perhaps For the first time, I no longer felt like I was standing on the outside. What happens when Emma's secret unravels? Will Lauren ever see her true strength? Don't miss the next chapter of this emotional journey. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated. Comment your thoughts below, Team Emma or Lauren. Watch the next episode now.